Hello everyone, I'm Yelda and today I'm going to talk about DOM-based XSS. HTML DOM is a standard object model for HTML, which means that HTML elements are defined as objects. So we can set properties, we can change those objects, and we have methods to access all the HTML elements and their events. In other words, the HTML DOM is a standard for how we can get, change, add or delete any HTML elements. Cross-site scripting (XSS) is a client-side code injection attack when attacker inputs malicious JavaScript code into the victim's web browser. And by doing this, they can steal victims' information or make them to do some malicious activity on their websites. For example, we have an insecure website with search functionality and we have the gift category to be searched, this term. And this term, exactly how we write it in the website, going to be included in the main web page as this. You search for the gift and here are some of the results. But if there is no input validation for the parameter of term, we can inject JavaScript code. And by this, we can steal their cookies, log in as their impersonate that user, or we can steal their PII data, or we can steal their banking credit card information. In DOM-based XSS, attacker inject JavaScript code inside the malicious or vulnerable sources and passes it to a vulnerable sink to be get executed. For example, using eval or inner HTML. Let's say we have a document.base URL in here and we input this value directly without any input sensitization or input validation directly to the vulnerable sink document.write. And instead of legitimate input, if we input some JavaScript code, there will be get executed on the main page. Here are some suspicious DOM sources: document.url, base URL, href, search, hash, referrer, and name. And whenever we have these function DOM sinks inside of your code, and we get these information exactly from the DOM sources without any input validation, which means that our website is vulnerable to DOM-based XSS. Let's here do some laboratories. I'm using Portswigger's website, Web Security Academy, to demonstrate the DOM-based XSS. Here it says that this lab contains the DOM-based cross-site scripting vulnerability in search query tracking functionality. It uses JavaScript document.write function, which writes data out to the page. The document.write function is called with data from location.search, this is our source, which you can control using website URL. So in order to execute a DOM-based XSS, we need three things. We need DOM source, for example, location.href, base URL, anything which is available in the website, document.write, our sink, and the way we can control it. So to solve this lab, we should perform a cross-site scripting attack that calls an alert function. Before doing any web application security test, we need to know how our web application works. So I do random testing in here. Okay, my input value are shown in here. I can see it in here, which means if I can see it in the URL, which means it's already written to the my location.search source. And we can check the web page source using developer options in Chrome. I go to the elements and search for my input. I can see it in here, I can see it in here. I can see that my search term appended to in here. If I write something else, anything, you will see that my input are written in two places. But above this image element in here, we have a script. Let's take a look at that. We have a function for track search, which gets the search parameter from the location.search source and put it in the query. And if we have a query, it gives the query to the input of this function. And this function writes the newly created image tag to the web page by using the document.writeSync. And as you can see, there is no input validation in here. Whenever I type here, it straightly goes to this search terms parameter value. So we have this query in here. And instead of query, for example, if I wrote a test, it becomes this. But if I close the tag by using double quotation, close the src of the image tag, and close the image tag, and then add my alert function, it's going to be executed. So this is my payload in here. I'm going to use that. If I do this, you will see that my alert function is executed and the laboratory is solved. And what if I do this? Location.search equal to my value. Sorry. See, I inputted my malicious JavaScript code into the location.search and it got executed. That's it for the first laboratory, and we can move on to the next one. This lab demonstrated a reflected DOM vulnerability. Reflected DOM vulnerabilities occurs when the server-side application processes data from a request and echoes the data in the response. This is very important things to know in the XSS. Whenever our input echoes back to the response, or whenever I type in the, for example, in the search functionality, and got it in the main page, it means that maybe there is XSS vulnerability and we need to find that. It can be reflected XSS, it can be stored XSS, or it can be DOM XSS. A script on the page then process the reflected data in an unsafe way. So my input goes to the server and reflected back to response, and though that response, which is controlled by me, are written to the is written to the dangerous sink. To solve the lab, create an injection calls the alert function. Let's access the lab. As you remember, I first need to confirm that my search functionalities works fine. As I expected, okay, I can see the results for test. I can see it in here. And I inspect it and look for the test. Okay, I can see it in just one usage of the test. And I can see a search result.js. So let's take a look at that. Here in this search result.js, my function create a HTTP request first to the /search results and uses windows.location.search DOM object as an input. So I have an input, straight goes to the get of the search results, and on the radius state change, which means when I got the response and it is 200 and it's okay, I evaluated the response. So I use this source and I use this sync function to execute the response. Since there's a HTML request included in this lab, so let's go and turn on my Burp Suite in here. Make sure the intercept is off. In order to catch all the requests, I need to do the search functionality once again. In the target, I can see my request in here. But since our response is evaluated somehow, so I need a request with a JSON response, or any response can be. So here I have a HTML response, and for this I have a JSON response. So I send it to the repeater. At first, I need to make sure that it works just fine. So I have the term XSS and it's reflected in the response. If I add anything, you will see that I have the reflected XSS in here. Not XSS, I have the reflected input in the response, but I'm not sure it's XSS or not. So all I know that this response straightly goes to my eval function. Eval is just evaluate the JavaScript code. So if I do this, go to console and write var search result object and just add my response in here, I will have my JSON object. Yes. So I need to somehow break this and execute my own injected JavaScript. In order to do so, I first try in here, but I need to find a way to close this JSON packet, JSON response. So at first, I try double quotation. As you can see, double quotation is escaped. There in JSON corruption attacks, you need to check double quotation, single quotation, the things that are used or bracket and these kind of characters to make sure that every character is escaped. So I try this backslash. As you can see, my response is changed, which means that backslash it doesn't escape. So whenever I add one backslash, the next quotation is going to be escaped. So my whole search term value is going to be backslash double quotation and comma and the rest of the JSON. But since there is no comma, my JSON is corrupted. And if I go and add this to the object, you will see that I got an unaccepted identifier. So I add this to close the search term value. Now you can see that my search term value is closed and the value is this, and the rest of my JSON works just fine. In order to see that, let's do this. As you can see in here, it says that you backslash escape the backslash. So my value is this, but I have a single double quotation left inside of the JSON, so it caused an error. So if I go and do this, you will see that it's going to be added the inside of the JSON, but it doesn't work. The reason for that, I can check it always in here. As you can see, it become black. It means that it's somehow evaluated, but I need to close the JSON packet. So I do this. I have a JSON and the rest of the JSON, but I don't need this. The rest of it I just commented. And this is my payload. Let's try it. Oh no. But my I didn't forward it. So as you can see, the rest is commented and I have alert 1 inside of my JSON. But let's just make sure. But we have also an error. We have to make sure that this alert is not connected to the double quotation in here. So same as the verb suite, whenever you want to make a space between your expressions, adjacent a plus or minus, doesn't matter. As you can see, my alert function is work. It's something like this. I did this var network. So since DOM-based XSS only can be executed from the client side. I need to insert my input directly from the browser. So I go here, I go back to my page, and when I do that, I was able to alert them one value and solve them. So this is it. I hope you enjoyed it. See you in the next videos.